The gulf of space was no longer the cold, impenetrable void it once seemed. By the year 2291, humanity's starships carved luminous scars across the dark, crossing the interstellar distances once thought impossible. The sprawling Avarin expanse, a confederation of alien worlds with millennia of history, had finally opened its gates to Earth, lured by necessity as much as curiosity. Aboard the Earth vessel Odyssey's Dawn, Ambassador Evelyn Marlowe stood on the panoramic observation deck, hands clasped behind her back. Her posture was rigid, betraying a tension she refused to show on her face. Beyond the reinforced transparisteel, the cosmos blurred into rivers of starlight as the ship exited SLIPSTREAM. The sight that awaited them was nothing short of breathtaking. Avarin Prime, the political and cultural heart of the expanse, sprawled below like an opal wreathed in silvery clouds. Its continent shimmered with sprawling metropoles and emerald wilderness intertwined, veins of light marking the arteries of ancient civilizations. Ambassador, we are on final approach. Her attach. Daniel Price announced, snapping her out of her reverie. Thank you, Daniel, Evelyn replied, her voice calm, though her heart pounded. This wasn't merely a diplomatic mission. Earth stood on the precipice of an energy crisis, and the Avarin plasma conduits were humanity's last hope. A treaty here could mean salvation or disaster. As the Odyssey's Dawn descended through swirling atmosphere, Evelyn observed vast, floating platforms that housed entire city sectors suspended on anti-gravity pylons. Serpentine transit corridors connected them like delicate threads. Even from orbit, Avarin Prime pulsed with a strange, almost musical resonance that vibrated through the hull. They landed in the grand vestibule dock, a colossal structure hewn directly from a plateau of living crystal. Teams of Avarin sentinels awaited them, clad in robes woven from reactive filaments that shimmered with soft bioluminescence. Each was armed with slender polearms whose blades hummed with contained energy. At their head stood Sirith K, the first blade of the throneless queen. His skin was a deep amethyst, eyes like pools of liquid silver. When he spoke, his voice resonated not only through the air but seemed to vibrate in Evelyn's very bones. Welcome to Avarin Prime, Ambassador Marlowe of Earth. The Queen awaits. Evelyn inclined her head respectfully. It is an honor to stand upon your world, First Blade. May your steps here echo wisely, Sirith replied, a traditional Avarin blessing whose deeper meaning Evelyn would only come to grasp much later. The crystal citadel their delegation was escorted through. Soaring halls of the Crystal Citadel, the seat of Avarin's governance. The architecture seemed to breathe, lattice structures shifting minutely, refracting the ambient light into dancing cascades. Holographic tapestries chronicled Avarin's bloody past, empires risen and shattered, heroes ascended and betrayed. Evelyn was finally ushered into the throne gallery. She found it empty of a throne. Instead, at its center stood a single dais of black obsidian, upon which sat Queen Ashara Velsaroon, her posture relaxed, eyes closed, fingers drumming lightly on her knee. Ashara's skin was a pale iridescent hue, patterns of biochromatic filaments swirling beneath its surface like living tattoos. When she opened her eyes, Evelyn felt an almost physical jolt. Those eyes were fractured prisms, reflecting countless possibilities at once. Ambassador Marlowe, Ashara said, her tone smooth as glass yet undercut by weary gravity. Earth arrives at last, bearing bright promises and hungry eyes. Evelyn dipped her head in a shallow bow. Your Majesty, I come not only to secure the future of my people, but to forge a bond that strengthens both our worlds. Ashara smiled faintly. A bond forged on necessity often bears sharper edges than either party expects. Still, let us see if together we might smooth them. She rose from the dais in a liquid motion, extending her hand. Evelyn hesitated. On Earth, this would be a handshake, but here she had studied enough to know. Clasping hands was an intimate act, reserved for moments of profound trust or initiation. Steeling herself, she placed her hand in Ashara's. For a heartbeat that stretched into eternity. Evelyn's mind was flooded with a torrent of sensations, memories not her own, of skies burning with warships, laughter among alien children, Ashara standing defiant before a council of traitors. When it ended, she gasped, stumbling back. Consider this an initiation, Ambassador. On Avarin, we share truth through touch, Ashara said, her voice touched by something gentle, sympathy, perhaps. Come, tonight there will be a feast. In your honor, tomorrow we will weigh each other's worth. As they were led away, Daniel whispered, Are you all right? Evelyn nodded, though her pulse still raced. Yes, but understand this, Daniel. We stand on ground far older and more cunning than anything Earth has ever known. Nightfall on Avarin Prime, the feast was held in the hanging gardens, terraces of bioluminescent flora that unfolded. Under Avarin's twin moons, musical currents shimmered through the air, literal waves of resonant energy that shaped themselves into haunting harmonies. As Evelyn navigated conversations with scholars, merchants, and lesser nobles, she sensed an undercurrent of unease, whispers of the dissent, a splinter faction who believed Ashara's reforms betrayed Avarin's sacred hierarchies, drifted like smoke. Then Ashara was beside her once more, offering a crystal chalice filled with a liquid that refracted the stars. Evelyn accepted, their fingers brushing again, this time sparking only a subtle pulse that made her stomach flutter unexpectedly. They feared change. Ashara murmured, eyes scanning the revelers. But change is the marrow of survival. Tell me, Evelyn, how far would your Earth go to preserve itself? Far enough to stand here, risking everything? Ashara's laughter was soft but edged. Then perhaps, Ambassador, we're not so different? As the night deepened, Evelyn found herself standing at the garden's edge, gazing over Avarin's sprawling brilliance. Ashara joined her in silence. For a fragile moment, the concerns of treaties and power gave way to something simpler, 2 leaders, 2 women, standing on the precipice of a future neither could yet name. But in the distance, beyond the city's protective wards, a dark bloom of explosions marred the horizon. Evelyn's heart clenched. Even here, on this breathtaking alien world, shadows waited to devour the light. The tremors of distant detonations still echoed through the night air when Evelyn awoke in her guest chamber. A low resonance lingered in her bones, a remnant of Avarin's subtle energy fields that made sleep uneasy and dreams vivid. Her mind replayed glimpses of violence, shadowy figures moving through torchlit streets, cries of alarm swallowed by silence. She rose, dressed quickly in her formal tunic, and stepped into the corridor where Daniel already waited, eyes wide with concern. "It's confirmed," he said in a hushed voice. A series of coordinated strikes, supply conduits targeted, several outlying districts in chaos. "The dissent wants to fracture Ashara's rule." Evelyn exhaled slowly. Then the window to secure an alliance just narrowed. "They'll see Earth as opportunists if we can't help stabilize this." Servants led them to the strategy hall, where voices wove a tense tapestry of argument. Ashara stood at the room's center, surrounded by advisors whose intricate sigils marked their loyalty and power. Her expression was calm, yet a fierce intensity burned beneath. She listened, eyes narrowed, to conflicting proposals, harsh crackdowns, appeasement through concessions, even the brutal eradication of entire dissenting bloodlines. When she caught sight of Evelyn, Ashara's posture shifted slightly, a subtle easing of her shoulders that told Evelyn their fragile bond mattered. "Ambassador Marlowe," Ashara called, her voice ringing clear. "You come from a world that has risen and fallen under the weight of its own revolutions. Tell me, how does Earth smother insurrections born of desperation?" Evelyn hesitated. The advisors turned their luminous gazes upon her, some with curiosity, others with open disdain. She chose her words with care. "On Earth, force may crush a rebellion's head, but it rarely roots out the cause. Where people hunger, where hope is stripped away, flames will always return. Address the root, even if it takes longer. Show that loyalty brings prosperity, that dissent breeds only ruin." A silence fell. Then a grizzled military tactician snorted. "Idealism. The Avarin way is to let tradition bind all, deviation punished, swiftly, so none dare follow." But Ashara's expression was thoughtful, and her fractured eyes caught Evelyn's with a quiet, dangerous sort of gratitude. A council divided discussions turned to heated debates, voices rising, old grudges surfacing. Evelyn stood her ground, offering suggestions to interlace humanitarian aid with selective displays of force. Ashara questioned her closely, probing Earth's history, its bloody uprisings, its fragile democracy's dot. As the council adjourned, Ashara drew Evelyn aside. Her presence was magnetic, that undercurrent of silent power more potent than any decree. "You understand more than I expected, Ambassador. Many see my reforms as weakness. They long for the cold certainty of old tyrannies." She paused, lowering her voice. "You spoke of addressing roots. That will require time I may not have." Evelyn met her gaze without flinching. "Then let me help you by it. Earth can deploy advisors, even aid convoys. Demonstrate unity. It will quiet some of your doubters." Ashura's lips curved, but it was not quite a smile. "Or convince them you're here to plant your own flag." Evelyn tilted her head. "Perhaps, but I'd rather plant something that takes root in trust." For the first time, Ashara laughed, a low, melodious sound that seemed to vibrate against Evelyn's ribs. Yet the mirth died swiftly, replaced by a shadow that darkened her features. "You risk much, Evelyn Marlowe. As do I tonight. Dine with me privately." There are truths I can share only beyond the ears of this court. Secrets under dimming stars night fell heavily, the air thick with charged expectation. Evelyn was escorted to a secluded chamber where only a modest table stood, laden with slender flasks of iridescent drink and small delicate dishes. Ashara dismissed her guards with a flick of her hand, leaving them alone with nothing but silence. And the faint pulsing hum of Avarin's ever-present energies died as they ate. Ashara spoke of her world's burdens, the hereditary houses whose rivalries were as old as recorded time, the binding oaths sworn on living conduits of plasma that once sustained planetary shields, and of how those oaths were fracturing under the pressure of modernity and ambition. There is something else, Ashara said, her voice dropping lower. Her fingertips brushed the surface of the table, sending small ripples of light skating across it. The descent is not merely a local nuisance. They are guided by an exile faction, once noble lines cast out after my mother's purges. They have aligned with off-worlders, not from the earth, but from the outlying trader enclaves. Smugglers, weapons traffickers. Evelyn felt her stomach tighten. You're saying this is being fueled externally? Someone stands to profit from your civil war? Ashara inclined, her hair flowing like quicksilver. And if Avarin fractures, the plasma conduits become ripe for plunder. Earth would see those routes closed by chaos, or worse, controlled by a warlord who sells to the highest bidder. A long silence stretched between them. Then Evelyn reached out, this time of her own accord, and laid her hand atop Ashara's. A shiver ran through her. A brief dance of fragmented memory and raw emotion. Then we hold this line together, Evelyn said. I won't let my people's desperation be the blade that cuts your world. Ashara's eyes shone with a strange light. Nor will I let my people's pride destroy yours. We stand together, then, even if the abyss yawns close. The first clash at dawn, Evelyn awoke to urgent summons. The descent had moved faster than intelligence predicted, striking at critical communication nexuses. Hoping to blind the royal forces before a larger assault, she joined Ashara and Sirith K in the command hub, where tactical readouts glimmered. In mid-air, lines of projected troop movements flickering ominously, Sirith's usually impassive face was drawn tight. We have deployments here and here, he pointed with deliberate precision. But the rebels have begun using cloaked disruption cells. If they sever the relay grid, we lose orbital oversight. Ashara's hand closed around Evelyn's wrist, eyes flashing with urgency. You propose Earth's observational assets. Will you commit them now? Evelyn didn't hesitate. Done. My ship's sensor drones are already in orbit. I'll coordinate a data link. Their hands touched briefly, once again that subtle electric shiver. Then Ashara turned away, issuing rapid commands. Evelyn fell in beside Daniel at a secondary console, relaying orders to the Odyssey's dawn, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. Hours blurred into tense maneuvers. Alerts flared, counteroffensives surged. At last a terse report came in. The rebel forward command post had been exposed, forced into retreat by a precision strike that Evelyn's intelligence had made possible. Ashara crossed the chamber to stand before her. We've won a breathing space. You gave us that. Evelyn managed a tired smile. We're far from done. No, Ashara agreed, her voice soft but iron beneath. But tonight, my people will see that the hand of earth has steadied our heart, not grasped for it. That matters more than you can yet know. A fragile accord when the council reconvened, Evelyn noticed a subtle shift. Fewer wary eyes, more grudging nods. Even Sereth's stiff posture seemed to ease, but just beneath that surface lay an ocean of uncertainty. The descent was wounded, not slain. Tomorrow might bring fresh fires, fresh graves. And each success bound Earth more tightly to Avarin's fate dot as she returned to her chamber that night. Daniel spoke quietly beside her. It's working, Evie, but every step pulls us deeper. If this alliance fails, she placed a hand on his arm, then we ensure it doesn't fail. Yet even as she lay down to rest, Evelyn found herself thinking of Ashara's eyes, not just the fractal reflections of power and duty, but the glimpse of someone profoundly alone beneath it all, and wondered if the real alliance being forged was not between Earth and Avarin, but between two souls, each searching for something neither dared name. Dawn on Avarin Prime arrived like a muted sigh, the twin suns rising over shrouded city spires that glistened with dew and residual plasma discharges from the night skirmishes. In the quiet aftermath, the capital felt fragile, as though it might fracture under the slightest pressure. Evelyn found herself summoned early to a smaller audience chamber, its walls alive with shifting glyphs that chronicled Avarin's countless dynasties. Queen Ashara stood before a window of living crystal that refracted the sky into molten hues. Her silhouette was regal, yet her posture betrayed fatigue. You slept little, Evelyn observed, voice low so it would not carry. Ashara's lips curved faintly. On this world, sleep is a luxury reserved for the secure. I have not been secure since the day the throne was shattered. Evelyn crossed the chamber, stopping beside her. They still call you queen. Ashara's eyes, prismatic, always changing, met hers. A courtesy. In truth, I am Velsaroon, last of a bloodline too splintered by old vendettas to sit comfortably on anything so grand as a throne. The real power I hold is in the hearts of those willing to risk everything for a future that frightens them. She paused, voice dropping, like yours does. Evelyn felt her pulse skip. I came because Earth has little choice, but I've stayed because I see what you're trying to build. Even if it terrifies half your people, and the other half? Ashara asked, tilting her head. They're terrified it might fail. That earned a soft laugh, brittle, edged with grief. Then Ashara gestured for her to follow. Come, there is something I wish you to witness. The veiled court, they moved through a succession of narrow passages, far from the ceremonial splendor of public halls. Here the walls were rougher, dark veins of mineral coursing like arteries. They emerged into a chamber lit by sun shafts, piercing from above, illuminating a ring of silent figures clad in layered robes of ash and dusk. The veiled court, Ashara explained in a near whisper. Once, they were keepers of our moral compacts. Now they serve as arbiters ancient. Families too embedded to be exiled, too powerful to ignore. One stepped forward, face obscured by a latticework of etched metal. His voice was rust on stone. You bring the outsider among us, Velsaroon. To what end? So she may gaze upon our decay. Evelyn stood straighter, refusing to cower. I'm here to understand, so I can help secure what both our worlds stand to lose. A chorus of low, mocking hums drifted through the chamber. Another figure, taller, adorned with dangling prisms that tinkled with every breath, spoke. Your alliance is brittle. Should Avarin fracture, Earth will scavenge our remains. You do not fool us with words of unity. Before Evelyn could reply, Ashara stepped between them, her presence suddenly immense. You think I do not see the rot in these halls? It is why I risk everything on foreign bonds. Earth may save us, or hasten our doom. But stagnation is certain death. I choose uncertainty over rot. The veiled murmured among themselves, the sound like 1,000 beetles, scuttling across glass. At last they withdrew into the shadows, leaving only silence behind. Ashara exhaled shakily, her shoulders drooping. Evelyn reached out, her hand finding Ashara's. This time, the shared resonance was not a surge of power, but a muted echo. Two leaders drawing silent strength from each other. The assassins whisper that night, the capital's uneasy. Calm ruptured again. Explosions rattled the palace foundations. Evelyn was jolted awake by alarms and the urgent footfalls of guards. Her door burst open to reveal Daniel, face pale. An infiltration strike. They breached the outer sanctum. We have to move. The corridors became a blur of flickering lights and shouted commands. As they rounded a corner, a figure erupted. From a concealed mesh blade gleaming with crackling plasma, aimed for Evelyn's throat. She staggered back, but before the strike landed, a flash of silver intercepted the blow. Sirith Kai's polearm locked the assassin's blade with a shriek of discharging energy. Sparks lit the corridor like falling stars. With a deft twist, Sirith drove the weapon aside and lunged. The assassin crumpled, their last breath a wheeze that reeked of burnt ozone. Sirith did not spare a glance, instead pulling Evelyn forward. They target you now, Ambassador. The descent means to shatter this alliance by slaughtering its face. They barreled through more hallways until they reached a reinforced chamber where Ashara stood surrounded by elite sentinels. Her eyes blazed when she saw Evelyn. Are you hurt? No, Evelyn breathed, chest heaving. But your enemies grow bolder. Ashara's gaze sharpened, her jaw hardening. Then we will be bolder still. A gambit in the lower city by morning. The palace was locked down, but Ashara refused to retreat into gilded safety. Instead, she devised a maneuver so audacious. It left even her generals stunned. We strike at the distant supply caches in the lower city. Personally, she announced. Velsaroon stands with the people, not above them. And the ambassador of Earth will stand at my side. Let the whole of Avarin see. Sirith bristled. It is folly. 1,000 assassins will seize this opportunity. Ashara's eyes never wavered. Then let them try. Evelyn met her gaze. I didn't come this far to hide. Let's show them what unity looks like. So they descended in armored carriers, flanked by ranks of disciplined guards. The lower city was a maze of shadowed streets, soaring platforms stitched together by glowing conduits. Here, the populace watched with wary eyes, torn between fear and desperate hope. At a public plaza, Ashara stood before the masses, her voice carrying with an almost unnatural clarity. This is your world. These are your children's veins and breaths and dreams. I will not see them bartered by cowards who lurk in shadows. And I stand not alone. Behold your future, bound with Earth's own. Evelyn stepped forward as well, raising her voice over the throne. We did not come to plunder Avarin, but to share in its rebirth. Together we forge bonds that tyrants cannot break. Their words rolled through the crowd like a living wave. Cheers burst forth, hesitant at first, then swelling. Even as Evelyn's heart lifted, her eyes scanned for danger. Somewhere among these faces might be another assassin's blade, under a fractured sky later that night. Back in the hastily secured compound, Ashara poured 2 slender glasses of a luminous violet spirit. To survival, she said, her usual. Regal cadence, a soft dot, Evelyn clinked her glass lightly against hers, and to building something better than survival. For a moment, there was no queen or ambassador, only 2 weary souls daring to hope. Their hands found each other again, fingertips brushing, sparking a subtle echo of memory that was almost tender. Ashara's voice dropped to a whisper. I have faced down warlords, traitorous kin, even the hollow echo of my own failures. But with you, Evelyn Marlowe, I find myself contemplating a future I never dared envision. Evelyn's pulse thundered, not from fear, but from the fragile, dangerous enormity of it all. Then let's not turn away from it. Even if tomorrow demands, we stand against every shadow this world can conjure. Ashara's answering smile was luminous. Then let tomorrow come, together. Outside, under Avarin's fractured sky, the stars burned with silent promise. The war was far from over, and their alliance was still a fragile thread stretched over an abyss. But for the first time, Evelyn believed that thread might yet become a lifeline. The fragile calm that had settled over Avarin shattered in a single breath. It began with sirens, long, wailing tones that spiraled through the capital like mournful specters. Evelyn woke with a start, hand instinctively reaching for the communicator. At her bedside. But before she could speak, the door burst open and Daniel's grim face appeared. They've begun a coordinated siege. The Descent's forces are pressing from 3 sectors, using civilian corridors as shields. The palace and the outer defense hubs are both under threat. Evelyn dressed quickly, heart hammering, mind slicing through the fog of sleep. When she arrived at the palace's central war room, it was chaos. Holographic projections flared and twisted as new data streamed in. Officers barked overlapping reports. Amid it all, Ashara stood like a blade, unmoving, fierce, every inch. The queen her people so desperately needed. When Ashara's eyes found hers, Evelyn saw no hesitation. Only the terrible burden of sovereignty. They mean to break us tonight, Ashara said flatly. Force a capitulation while the world watches. If we lose this city, all our smaller outposts will splinter. Sirith K stepped forward, jaw set in iron. We can consolidate within the palace. Pull all loyalist forces back, lock down the conduits, make them fight for every level, bleed them slowly. Evelyn shook her head. And lose the outer sectors. Completely? You'll hand them sanctuaries they can fortify, turn this into a grinding war of attrition you can't afford. Bashara regarded her, gaze searching. Then what do you propose, Ambassador? counter their momentum. Hit one flank hard, scatter them before they entrench. Let them think you're withdrawing to defend your seat, then strike where they've overextended. Cirrus scowled. Risky. If we fail to break through, we lose precious reserves. Ashara's stare hardened. If we do nothing, we lose everything. Prepare the maneuver. I'll lead the push myself. The room fell silent. Shock rippled through her commanders. Evelyn stepped closer. You'll draw every blade toward you. They'll know you're the prize. Ashara's voice was low but unyielding. Then let them come for me, so long as you are there to drive the knife into their exposed heart. The counter-strikey moved under cover of cloaking pulses, armored columns rolling through Avarin's lower arterials. Evelyn rode beside Ashara in a troop carrier that hummed with shielded power. Outside, the city was a surreal maze of shattered spires and smoldering conduits. Plasma fires turned the streets into rivers of ghostly blue light. When they disembarked, the noise struck like a living wall. The crack of dischargers, the distant roar of toppling structures, the eerie keening Avarin's energy fields reacting to so much violence. Ashara donned a half-mask etched with faintly glowing sigils, a symbol of her lineage that also doubled as a tactical visor. Beside her, Evelyn adjusted her earth-forged combat rig, a sleek harness studded with microdrones, each ready to map terrain or intercept projectiles. They advanced with disciplined precision. Loyalist squads poured through fractured plazas, driving wedges into rebel formations. When the real clash came, it was brutal and chaotic. Evelyn found herself firing at silhouettes that flitted between broken archways, shouting coordinates into her uplink as allied forces surged past. Beside her, Ashara moved like a storm, blade flashing with arcs of condensed energy, each strike severing not just flesh, but the small personal shields rebels wore. The two women fought back to back, an unspoken trust guiding every pivot. When the push finally broke through, Evelyn stumbled into a courtyard slick with spilled light. Ashara grabbed her arm, steadying her. Around them, rebels fled in disarray, some tossing down their weapons, others cut down by disciplined volleys from loyalist lines. Cirith arrived moments later, face streaked with grime, armor scored by near-lethal strikes. We've shattered their forward contingents. The rest are falling back toward the industrial belt. Your gambit worked, Ambassador. Evelyn sucked in a shaking breath, adrenaline still sizzling in her blood. She turned to Ashara. Now press the advantage before they regroup. Ashara didn't hesitate. Her hand found Evelyn's shoulder, squeezing once, heart urgent, almost grateful. Then she was striding off, barking new orders. The living embodiment of unrelenting will. The betrayer's face. By the next cycle, the capital's main districts were secured. Fires still burned, but the rebel tide had been turned. Evelyn should have felt relief. Instead, dread coiled in her gut because not all battles were fought in streets. That night, during a hushed strategy session, an urgent transmission crackled through. The voice on the line was one of Ashura's trusted regional overseers, yet something was wrong. His words were practiced, his reassurances too smooth. Ashara narrowed her eyes. "This is a stall," she whispered. "He's buying time." Before Evelyn could reply, alarms erupted throughout the palace. Hidden charges detonated in the foundation levels, flooding key defense conduits with destabilizing plasma. It was a surgical strike, planned with insider knowledge. Cirrus' expression was thunder. An inside hand fed them our schematics. Evelyn felt cold. Who would do this? Ashara's face was carved from stone. Someone whose blood ties once chained them to me. A cousin who vanished years ago, returned now with empty eyes and poison words. I should have seen it. Before they could pursue it, a sudden cascade of explosions rocked the northern towers. The traitor's plan was unfolding fast. Ashara's voice cracked like a whip. We fall back to the command nexus. Secure the communications. If they sever it, we're blind to every flank. The edge of ruin, they raced through corridors wreathed in smoke. Evelyn's lungs burned. Her ears rang from near misses as structural braces collapsed behind them. Somewhere Ashara had taken her hand again, their fingers locked in a fierce, almost desperate grip. When they reached the nexus, loyal guards lay dead, systems sparking wildly. At the controls stood Ashara's cousin, Villain, once a bright. The fixture of courtly life, now gaunt and hollow-eyed. His skin laced with crude tattoos that glowed with stolen conduit power. He didn't turn. Ah, cousin, you arrived to see the birth of our liberation. Ashara's voice was lethal quiet. You were always weak, Velen. Not for wanting change, but for being too craven to build it with your own hands. So you steal, you corrupt. You crawl into the mouths of off-world leeches and call yourself revolutionary. He spun, eyes wild. Your reign is rot dressed in silk. You'd sell our sovereignty to aliens. Evelyn stepped forward, gun leveled. And you'd burn it all, sell it piecemeal to smugglers and black market arms lords. That's no freedom. That's slavery with new masters. Velen smeared, then lunged for the detonator. But Ashara was faster. Her blade snapped up, a crackling arc of white-hot energy. Velen staggered, dropped the device, and collapsed in a silent heap. Ashara stood over him, breathing hard. Her hands trembled only once before steadying again. Secure the systems. She rasped to Cirith, who was already moving. Then she looked at Evelyn, and for a heartbeat, the mask of the queen slipped, revealing raw anguish. Evelyn stepped close, hand brushing Ashara's cheek. You did what you had to. Ashara closed her eyes. Then why does it feel like tearing out my own heart? Under scorched stars hours passed in a blur of damage reports and cautious victories. Loyalist forces rooted out the last of the infiltrators. The capital still smoldered, scars etched deep, but it stood dawn at dawn. Ashara led Evelyn up a high parapet. Below, the city sprawled, battered yet stubbornly alive, streams of refugees returning, markets tentatively reopening. Overhead Avarins, twin suns rose on a horizon that looked almost hopeful. Ashara took Evelyn's hand. This time there was no pretense. Their fingers twined, warm and resolute. Together, Ashara whispered, "We will heal this, or we will fall trying." Evelyn squeezed back. Earth stands with you, I stand with you. And as they stood beneath the bruised heavens of Avarin, the first fragile notes of renewal began to stir, a tenuous promise that from so much ruin, something enduring might yet be born.